say all about it.
Live.
So what's up? You don't like those technical hurdles that made you jump through? I'm sorry about that.
I was like, I don't know. I was like, what do I do? Where's the thing?
If you can join, then you can be on. But
yeah.
You have to figure out how to join.
I mean, that's the ultimate test.
I thought you were smart, right? I'm sorry. So when I do these things, I literally duplicate the calendar invite, and there's only one thing to change. That's the link to log in. And I guess I literally didn't even change that. So you're probably trying to log into last week with Krish as the screenshot I saw from Tom.
I was trying to gate crash that one, to be totally honest with you, but like it's I figured but Tom's here and like Tom's the guy.
Steven Strong's in the comments already.
Okay, is he? All right, I need to.
He's already dropping comments in.
I need to technical hurdles. There we go. I could show that one.
Well,
Jesus, I'm there we go. Whoo, I'm a little rusty over here. I'm so nervous. Fred, I'm so nervous to talk to you. First of all, thank you for joining. There are certain things that we're going to talk about all sorts of shit at least within an hour, or if you got 4, we'll go till 5 until I have to pick up kids.
5 o'clock Pacific, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I saw this somewhere. Origin is my 3rd spin around the founder's block, which is perfect because this is actually the first time. If you look in this corner, which you can't, it's whitewashed. You got Tom's background and basically this is the first like founder fodder Friday kind of. So what's interesting with these things, like these are podcasts, but we live streamed them on Friday because that's the way we've been doing it. And founders, we've been talking to founders. We're on episode 7 now. Everyone's co-founded a company. You've co-founded at least 3. So obviously want to talk to you about that. You're one of the most respected minds in the space. I think part because you're smart, but I think the other part is because you say it how it is, which is why I'm excited to have you on there.
As they say back home, fucking word. There you go. Absolutely.
Fucking word.
Cut through the shit.
So cutting through the shit, cutting to the point is so for those of you watching, hold on, we got a lot of comments here. This is good. It's all one guy though. Oh well, it's multiple people. To everybody listening, I do want to welcome everybody to the first edition of Fred's 30 minutes to an hour of doing a live stream of all the things he did wrong this week.
Oh yeah.
It's the first edition. That's so the poll went well. Most people want to hear that. So I like, and that's what we do a lot about here. Like we all do things wrong and it's all about growing, being the best, right? That's what entrepreneurship is.
Yeah, that and pain and like definitely not realizing all the less romantic things about sort of the entrepreneurialism thing. And I put that in quote marks because it's actually a word I don't really like. I don't know why. I sort of like, so technically, by the way, Origin's actually number 4. Number 1 was when I was about 5 and I took all of our family heirlooms out of the dining room, including like 400-year-old silver candelabra and like my great-grandmother's gold teeth. I walked them up and down the street, selling them to people for like 50p. Not the gold teeth; they actually didn't sell for some reason. But like, and on top of that, I had like silver candelabra, but then I also had like Ziplocs with like a single lump of coal in, and they were also 50p. So like, depending on like how canny the customer was, like they could either really grab a bargain or really grab a lump of coal. And like, I learned a lot there. And I can't remember what I did wrong that week, but I will tell you that like, I made about £2.50 that day, but then I owed my mum about 500 quid because she had to walk behind me, like buying everything back from the neighbors, and like, well, I think I'm still settling that debt. I think the interest is accruing, but but what was your question?
Well, first of all, Fred, I didn't realize, I had no idea you were such a prolific entrepreneur. I did not realize that. So It's a very interesting. You have a very interesting life story.
Well,
I don't even know where to begin, but I mean that's probably a good start. But I mean, yeah, I did not realize that.
I think that's the
His
problem.
mother was an first investor. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, didn't mean to be, but she was. But like, I don't know. I think it was the whole entrepreneur thing. Like my whole life, like I've only ever really kind of done this kind of thing, right? Like I was an employee for a few years, like once or twice. One was as a barman, which doesn't really count. The other was as a waiter, which definitely didn't count because I'm so mal coordinated that like if I had to take soup to someone in like one of those like posh restaurants where like the bowl was like almost like a plate, which is so dumb, I would just like turn it sideways like the whole way, and and so on. But like so I got fired from that pretty fast. But like I don't call it entrepreneurialism because it's just how I've always been. And I will just say, and like this is going to be really insulting to kind of like the MBAs out there, and as you said, like I said, how it is. I really respect people who go and get an MBA, but I don't think that you can learn to become an entrepreneur. Like you can learn to be really good at business. And that's why I would always say like, you're a business person rather than entrepreneur. Like it's, that just is a case of, are you a business person for your own business or are you a business person for someone else's business? And that to me is probably why I kind of take that approach, because one feels a little bit less sort of conceited and exciting than the other. And let's face it, like as my current and most unfortunate for his sake business partner would agree, like it's not that fun. There's not really that much to be conceited about when you choose to work for yourself. It's not all a bed of roses. And yes, Stephen would like to get a refund for his MBA, his origin MBA. #native.
I would agree with you though, Fred. I think I mean there's definitely a lot to learn. Getting refunded for the MBA. But I would agree. I think that there's just no way for you to prepare. There's two aspects of it, right? Like there's the tactical things that you have to do, but then there's the sort of the emotional journey of it, right? Like, trying to figure things out as you go and just and you're feeling around in the dark and you're just experimenting. I mean, there's just no way for you to I'm trying to focus, but I'm reading these comments.
Yeah,
I'm glad that we're getting comments now.
I'm sorry, I'm learning this too on the control, which is awesome. It is distracting.
No,
this
it's
is
cool.
Kirby proving his attention concerns. It's like, oh look, things to press, and he's actually making it harder for all of us. But Tom, you're right. Like it's either in your fucking blood or it's not. Like I tried to explain that, and I can't remember who or how or when or why I was talking about it, but like it's like when you get the bit between your teeth, when you get an idea, when you've decided that something's cool or you want to do it, like you don't have a choice but to pursue it. Like
Right.
That's I think the thing that you can't really teach someone and can't be taught. The one thing that you learn like as you go through from like selling lumps of coal to selling ads is like, how much of a vetting process am I going to do internally before I actually go and like lay down my job and convince my colleague and friend who's got all these children and like has a really better paid job than me because he's my boss and I kept on picking him up and like he kept on like crushing it. Like how do you convince him to quit his job? Like that's the one thing that you become better at over time, and like you slowly piece together what you want to look for, but you also piece together like how and when are you trying to trick yourself into thinking that your idea is a good idea or actually a shit idea that you just don't want to believe is a shit idea. Like that's
Fred, how do you make that distinction? That's a great segue, because I was just thinking as you were talking about like how do you know, I mean, maybe no is not even the right word, but how do you get the gut feeling or the instinct to say, this is definitely something I want to pursue? There's no question that you don't have all the data that you need to really make that decision. But so how are you, what is it about it that, is it just something like, I just want to participate in this, I know I can make a contribution, or what is it? What is it for you?
I have thought about that, and I felt like I sort of have needed to think about that, especially when I had to pitch. I like to anonymize. So we're just going to say, when I had to pitch Smeven Smong's wife, the idea that he should quit his job at Pusey, right, to come and like quit that job at Pusey to work at Schmorrishmin. Like, I had established that I was actually asking something really, really, really fucking big. And I discovered that like you got tangible and intangible facts connected to those, right? And what you gain over your life are like the check marks of the tangibles. You know, like when my sort of my third, no, well, my actual second, if we put the coal aside, like my second business was what got us, you know, got me to the States in 2011. And I went from selling bicycles to building a search engine. Like, what the fuck? You know, seriously, like, no knowledge, barely knew what the internet is, barely know what the internet is, just don't tell Schmeven. And like, just were, you know, like, got this great idea. Cool. Wrote a spreadsheet with someone who I'd known for like 3 months, got some money from a really good friend of his, and we arrived in California, and like, away we go. But we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't understand the space, but we had this dream. So like, that was the intangible thing. Like, there's this determination and grit that you're either like born with or not, which you're going to need because you have more shitty days than you do good days. And like, you know, and it's that grit that makes you blind to a lot of that. And then you just slowly pepper in more of the tangibles as you go through your life. And honestly, Origin is like, I think that, like, luckily it's the most recent, but like it's the best example of understanding what the tangibles are. Like Stephen, who is the most humble and modest fuck you'll ever meet, right? Like, he won't tell you that he is one of the most respected and one of the most knowledgeable people in our industry. Everyone else will tell you that. And he'll just be the guy that sort of stands in the corner, awkward and gangly. But like, and you know, but like, so I knew that I needed a partner who understood the industry. Like, you know, and when we built our search engine, we didn't. When I started my bicycle company, I didn't. When I sold coal, my mom didn't. You know, like, so that was like number one. It's like go into business with people who understand it as well, if not better than you, and go into an industry that you understand. And then go in an industry that you've been in for so long that you think you can, as I say, sort of like see over the horizon far enough into like the problems that are going to exist. Because people are already making money off the problems that do exist. So like, what can you see is going to be a problem in the future? And, you know, jump over everybody and deal with that. Have everybody laugh at you for 2 years while you're doing this thing that people think is just fucking ridiculous. And then eventually, like, by the time you've built your tiny little castle and they all come like catching up with you, they're like, oh, that's what you meant. Oh, that's what you do. Oh, that's interesting. And like, suddenly that's really super relevant. And before you know it, there's this like 12-person team that's like suddenly having a conversation that 900-person teams are like now figuring out like, oh, fuck, that's the thing. So I think I strayed a bit there, but like, that's the tangible and the intangible, you know?
And you guys have done, I've seen Origin. I'm seeing you doing stuff all over the place. There was, I don't have timestamps on any of this, but you moderated an OTTX chat. You just did a fireside chat with Gavin from Variety.
Yeah.
You're on Friday Fodder, Your Childhood Dream. You do one of my video things, which is amazing since 1985. I think you've been thinking about doing this. And then, all jokes aside, you did some really cool shit with Magna. I was hoping you could talk about that, the research you did.
Yeah, I mean, that was wild. And like, even when I'm like, just to be clear, like to Stephen and Mira and Stephen, like, you know, like, I don't even know if there's more than them here, but like, maybe it's better that I assume that that's it. But like, I don't like, even when I'm on panels and stuff, I don't like really sort of pitching what we do. So I'll keep this high level, but like, the Magnum Media Lab was an opportunity that came to us, right? Like, you can't ask to go into the IPG Media Lab. Like, they have to find you and then they kind of interview you. And if they think that what you do is interesting or weird or quirky enough, then they'll let you in. And what the Media Lab is like, it's, you know, I mean, it's a massive and comprehensive like way to run independent trials of your thing, right? Like, of your ad format or whatever it is that you have. And like, we were lucky enough to have been put forward by someone at an agency who had ironically also just passed on an RFP response. Like, we actually hadn't won the business, but she then
I'm sorry, on your RFP response.
Yeah, so we have like they put out an RFP for a campaign, and like we submitted a response, and and after, like, shortly after saying we're actually going to pass on you guys, we're going to do something more normal, like, which we hear a lot less so now, but we hear, like, she then put us forward to the folks at Magna saying, by the way, like, this is a really interesting solution, you should check it out. I've not seen it before, I've not come across it, could you take a look? And I think it's also because what that particular agency, I think that was like, I think it was like a Media Hub agency. I think it was Media Hub or somebody. They were like, if they get you put into like the media lab, the IPG media lab, or like they basically get someone who they trust to validate what you do. And so, we accepted the opportunity. We gave a few pitches, and then they said, we think what you do is really different, a bit weird. Like, there really is no one else doing this in the space, which is a very, like, often business owners say that as a form of either arrogance or denial, or stupidity, because they don't keep an eye open over their shoulder, and like, we went in and had 3-4 months in the media lab, like doing crazy shit, like literally attaching electrodes to people's brains to establish like what is the sweet spot of like cognitive arousal, and like you can, like Stephen and I do laugh at this, you can over arouse somebody, just so you know.
Yeah.
I
want to say that I'm cognitively aroused right now, but I won't say that.
No, say Mira, that you're averagely. Yeah.
Mira is saying that we're a great duo. I don't know who she's referring to. Maybe me and you, Kirby, or I don't know.
I think it's.
By the way, real guys, if you guys are watching, you're not saying anything, just give us a thumbs up. Let us know you're here.
Yeah. Please.
And just quick, you guys see this chat too? Like I'm still like, I still don't know what you guys even see. Okay, so you guys see this. Okay. I've been doing it, just I don't know what you guys see or not, so I'm still learning this thing 7 in. All right.
Yeah, no, I see something. I think the less I see, the better. I see hashtag over aroused, and then that's Steven, so that's good.
Aroused.
We've had a pretty busy day. Like, you know what? A good example. Today's been a pretty fucking hard day, actually. Like, pretty tough from start till now, and like the only thing that was keeping me going was the idea that I could talk shit and like speak with passion, but not about like big decisions. And then luckily I did have a call that was meant to be coming up at 3 that was like going to be one of the most important calls I will have had this year, and luckily they pushed, so now I'm super relaxed and ready to go until 8 o'clock Pacific, as you say. But yeah, I mean, just to cap off for the Media Lab, like we did it. It was a massive gamble, right? Like it's not cheap. You've got to really believe in your product, and like we do, because not only did we build it, but we road tested it and we run studies against it all the time. But like, you got to hope that the outcomes are going to be worth it, and they were. Like, it was amazing. But we also learned, like we wanted to get into the science behind how do you deal with the fact that no one's watching ads on TV. Like, you can't just say words, you've actually got to like, really think about it. And that's been, we learned so much, and that's really cool. We're very lucky.
So with the setup, you pay to have them test the idea, and they validate through a bunch of data points that this shit works.
It's a bit like that. Yeah. Like, there is a bill, but you're getting, I mean, it's if I was to say to you that it was going to cost X, it probably cost X plus Y to actually conduct. I mean, there were 2 types of panels. There were, 800 participants in one panel, and then an in-lab, like 60 participants in another panel. And like, it's a huge amount of research that they don't get anything from, except that they get to sort of claim the kudos, hopefully, that like, yeah, we're the people that really put our trust in them, kind of thing. So, you have to, like, it costs money, but that's because they don't get like there's nothing they'll get back from it. It's not like we go and give them X $100,000 of free campaigns, for having done it. Like it's, so it's an investment that we then hope to get back if people like what they see.
And they have a bunch of nodes or whatever attached to people's heads. Are they testing like skin temperature and things like that too?
I'm not sure about the skin temperature, more just like the arousal temperature. So like, what else was it? We looked at sort of, like for example, like time to first fixation. And again, I don't mean like when did you suddenly start getting fixated on someone and stalk them until like, you went to prison. I mean like fixation, like how long did it take for someone to go, like for an ad to start before they even know what they're watching? And like the human benchmark is like 0.1 of a second. And we discovered that with a wizardry, like it becomes like 0.01 of a second. And like, so there's stuff like that you can tell. You can also, it's not to do with the electrodes, but like obviously they wear things like eye tracking glasses, which is really fun. We're all about that, like finding out what, where, and how, like is where you get people looking back up. But yeah, I mean, it's all written in the document somewhere. I guess I could, I'm like, it was clever. It was really clever. You can download the report actually. And if you do, you have to give us your email address and then you become a subscriber to our newsletter. So if you want the report.
Sounds really interesting. Really interesting. I mean, I've always known that these things have been going on, obviously. I mean, but to hear about it's pretty interesting. So cool.
What would you say for? I mean, obviously, everybody go check out the report and get the newsletter. What the CTV Insider, right?
Yeah, there's the newsletter, Native CTV Insider or CTV Insider. Like we're a bit agnostic between the two, but we are very much the native CTV guys. And yeah, the report you can find somewhere from the footer of the site, and it's pretty long. I mean, it's about 35 pages of findings. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna ask for like what's the number one takeaway? Like obviously there's a lot of good stuff in there. Like if you're talking to a brand like that hasn't looked at the report, doesn't know it exists, like what's the number one coolest takeaway from this stuff you did with Magna?
So like that actually really does depend on like what would be the number one thing if I could only say one thing to a brand, what would it be? It would depend on what we knew about that brand and like what they were trying to accomplish. Like we discovered in this study that there were 20 different ways that a brand can benefit from what we do on TV. And like, that was crazy. And I would say if I had to single out the most interesting thing, it would probably be that like, so the 3 brands that we tested with, who I'm allowed to talk about, but I just can't single out results. So just disclaimer down here, were Energizer, Norton, and T-Mobile. And they were all brilliant, by the way. But like one of the brands, and I'm not going to make name jokes about this one because I will lose the company. When we tested them with an Origin format, there was like a 50 or 60% increase in the viewers' perception that brand is more innovative than its competition. And in a year where like, I feel like 2022 CTV and innovation is where like 2013 to 2016 and big data were, like innovation is the word, and like the one difference between the use of the word innovation today versus the use of the word innovation up until last year is that people now actually fucking mean it. Like, we did a Q&A with a big brand, an auto brand that they actually he just pretended sort of the A's to our Q's just this morning. And like, he's obsessed with innovation and like, he's meant it for longer than others. And what we're seeing are more people like them actually now putting their money where their mouth is and being prepared to adopt options and formats and solutions that fail as much as they do succeed. And I think this is the golden age now for TV. I think this is where we're walking in, right? Like it's taken up until now and a handful of pandemics to get viewership and the reach. Great. That's just one part of the equation. It's taken, while that's happening, for everyone to be building really cool shit, like, as we say, behind the glass. Like, that's where I think we really have like discovered that we're different, is like all of the things you can do with data and measurement and targeting, all big topics, all big problems. Lots of good technology exists behind the glass. The viewer can't see it. But earlier when I was like saying, looking over the horizon thing, like, and this taps into my problem of like being able to focus on anything. It's like, that's all good, but what good is any of that if no one's looking, right? Like, we've all read the studies, everybody's got their phone. And like, for the 10 minutes where I'm allowed in the evening to actually watch something that's ad supported, like, rather than something that isn't, there we both are on our phones, right? We don't care. So like, we came along and said, how can we use all of that underpinning cool technology and do something that's really smart in front of the glass and actually get in front of the problem? And like, that's what we did. And it's been
so Fred, I was actually going to ask you, and maybe you just described this in detail, but I mean, is there an industry trend right now that you think is really interesting? I mean, if it's what you've just described, which sounds amazing, I mean, that may be it. But is there something else that that's sort of like in the back of your mind that you're keeping an eye on, or in the peripheral?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think the willingness to take risk in innovation is now beginning to go hand in hand with a need to see results. Like, I would say less and less and less and less and less when we get engaged by a brand or their agency, are they saying brand awareness, that's our goal? Like, up until a year ago, 100%, bish bash bosh, brand awareness campaign, brand awareness. And it's not now that they just like suddenly want conversions or results. Like, there is still this world where we're exploring what that means on TV, but like, that's the other thing that's happening, and that's the exciting thing, and that's the challenge that we've have roundedly accepted. And we're lucky to have relationships with folks where we can be like, all right, we get what you want, we're going to get there together, but like, there's a chance that we're going to fuck this up along the way, but we're going to learn as we go. Like, we'll always give you the most that most people expect from TV today, but for that cherry on top that you're asking for, like ahead of the curve, don't expect those answers just yet. And like, QR remains this thing, like, put aside and put in a box what the crypto people did with QR. Like, that's not the rule, that's the exception, and like, that should be understood. Look at the rest of that, right? Like, and I don't want us to become a QR chat, but as a portal to get people doing things, 99.9% of every QR-based execution I see on TV is like squarely impossible, like unusable. And I think that isn't like, we're getting there, and there are still some X factor pieces that are missing for QR to succeed that we think we know. We're now just waiting to execute them with the right folks. But like, that's what's exciting. Yeah, innovation, but also actual like function. And I think, Tom, if I was to say something that's a little bit sort of risque, because I haven't really thought this through very much yet, but like, I would say there could be an era where we see TV advertising being more about function than fashion. I think we're going to see some interesting like peaks and troughs in like what it physically looks like and what it's designed to do.
For sure.
One thing I'll quickly,
Kirby, you've said this for a long time about the advertising experience, and that it's just taken forever, and then there may be other reasons for that, right? But like, there's these, we're building this tech, we have these apps, everything is being built, but yet we're still serving these traditional ad pieces, right? So yeah, we've talked about the way that can improve, and just different ways to engage the audience and make it more interactive. I don't know.
Well, yeah, like, interactive is such an interesting word, because we don't believe in interactive. We believe in interactionable. Like, we believe in sort of actionable, but we don't believe in remote controls. Fundamentally, we're against the idea of that. And I know that's not what you meant,
right?
but you're otherwise I think you're really spot on. And like I was quoted, there's this really cool trade. It's obviously not as cool as 4320 and like everything that they do, but or 4431, which is Steven's new publication coming out. I think he's just waiting to get the baseball cap stitched. But like with Stephen, we so have to make a baseball cap that's like exactly one number bigger than Kirby's. But sorry, I went away there. If you could, Stephen, just have that ordered by the end of the day. But like, oh fuck. Well, hang on.
Stephen, this is at hoodhat.com, by the way.
What? Yeah, hoodhat.
.com.
Oh, right, what was I going to say? This was
your quote. Your quote.
Yeah. So I was quoted I had a bit of a Q&A with an amazing little trade called Street Fight, and there was something.
Hey, Fred. Can I pause you for one? Actually, I'm sorry. Go. I got something lined up for you. But please go ahead.
Oh, well, okay. Well, pause away and don't pause away. Like, I was pausing myself for your benefit, but
were you? I thought the stream was fucked up. Anyway, no, I love that quote. I don't want to like show the quote before you say the quote, but I loved it so much. I actually like put it together in a little graphic here. Is this your quote? That's the fucking quote, man. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like I love the quote so much, and I didn't know you were gonna go there, but you went there and was like, oh, I got excited. I got the quote right here. Love it, man.
That's it. That's like that to me is like what it's about. And we're I can't I love being able to say, I can't say too much, but like we're actually already we're about to get really heavily into this. And like one of the buzzwords, Tom, is buzz phrases is DCO. And a lot of people are cashing in on the idea that like DCO means an overlay with your local auto dealer or a banner. And I'm just going to call bullshit on that right now. Like that's not fucking DCO. That's just smart, normal, decent, okay advertising. Like I'm talking about like the story, the actual, the thing that you're drawing them into being about that person in that home. And like that is a future that I do believe in.
And I'll just read this quote for when this is just audio only. I see the days of one ad fits all being a thing of the past and replaced by a future where every viewer is having a unique and compelling story delivered to their living room. The future of CTV advertising will offer brands a degree of agility so acute that their message can literally change with the weather. Fred Godfrey.
Yeah.
That's some good shit, man.
Yeah, man. Good stuff.
Well,
yeah. So I want to introduce a new segment. Tom doesn't even know about this. This is the segment. Let me cue up some music. New feature. But anyway, what I want to do, Fred, is I want to show you an image on the tangent of CTV and innovation or lack thereof. I want to show you an image, and I want to get your measure of arousal.
Wait, hold on, Kirby. Before you do this, I have to say, for everybody that's watching and listening to this, there is Kirby, you have not prepped Fred at all for this. We are literally just doing this. He is just in real time responding as we go, which is
definitely. This is why I interrupted him on his own quote. Sorry about that.
Perfect.
Non-scripted, non-rehearsed.
Non-scripted. We are just flying.
Okay, and just out of interest. What's you want my arousal score, right?
I mean, we could.
Am I giving you?
I think we'll just know the arousal score, but I'm just going to show you an image. Just give me your first reaction. So, so I captured this image yesterday. I was watching an app, and I was streaming the Big Ten basketball tournament. Where, if you didn't watch it, if you don't care, Michigan completely fell apart. Travesty. But I took this picture with my camera. It's like, what the hell is this? I got to ask Fred about this. Like, how is this still a thing?
For fuck's sake. That's my answer.
I mean,
really?
Like they couldn't sell that block right there. I mean, what is that? What is that, Fred? Seriously.
I mean, it looks like a transformer. Like kind of a cool.
Well, I mean, it kind of says where the app was streamed from. It was Fox.
Well, they
But
don't.
I mean,
there's
it's
gotta be
2022. I
some-
feel like I mean, I feel like I was asking this 8 years ago. Like, oh man, why are they just showing the slate? Like, I would imagine like some ads could go there, and this might be leaving money on the table. It's an opportunity.
Well,
But it's
can I-
2022 now.
Can I like tell you like just between the three of us in our private trust tree, because like no one else is here, and like I still assume
Of
it's
course,
you,
yeah.
That's the
me,
purpose of this.
Tom, Mira, and Steven, right? Like it's just the five of us, and Mira's a good friend, but like so no one else can hear this. When we came up with like I mean, thank you for teeing this up, Curbs, but like when we invented Origin Slate, like we like for us it was like, does this have to be us? Like, come on. Like, you know, we understand and respect, right, that in linear TV, and I mean like normal, like future linear, I mean like digital linear, I mean fast or whatever the hell we're calling it, like these breaks are fixed. Not every break's going to be like, not every spot's going to be sold. That's okay. That's human, right? Like that's all right. But can like really you can't do better than just saying we'll be right back. You know, so when we
Well, they will be right back. I mean, just to be clear, they eventually will come back.
Exactly. Who are they saying is like yeah, you'll be right back, but that's great because I won't
case we
fucking
were
be
wondering.
here.
We won't be back.
We
I'm
won't
going to
be
do
back.
something else now.
Yeah, we're
Because
gonna
I'm
go.
bored.
Yeah.
And so like when we with Origin Slate, like it was just the most obvious thing in the world. And now its execution has been remarkably complex, but the idea was so obvious and like, you know, and it was inspired by a friend of mine who was at the time at Vizio. And I really do want to like point that out. Like, you know, he said, hey, Fred, like you produce so much really cool content in your studio. Could we like license a bunch to fill some of our dead air? Like that's how it began. And like, it just got the little gray cells turning. And then we were like, well, hang on, we actually don't know how long that spot's going to be. And like, how much would it suck to like have to cut out of a 15-second thing to get back to your thing? And that was how Origin Slate began. And like, it's a really, really gorgeous product. And like, it's just a good example of how we've been so lazy as a species that we've just said, here's how it's been done for 7 decades. Right. Let's do this and get HDV. Don't fix or change anything. And that's the problem, right?
Fred, congrats, man. I mean, because I'll tell you, I consider myself a fairly technical person. The idea of making contributions into what you guys are doing makes my head explode. It just is so, for me, it's like it just gets more, it gets exponentially more complex every time I talk about it. There's more things that are going on. There's more things that you can do. So, you know, it was easier when there were more restrictions, but now that it's opening up, it's like, you know, you can, yeah.
And that's the fucking point, Tom. It's like, it seems easy, right? But like fundamentally, it's lateral thinking, right? It's, you know, I was told like when I was younger, and I meant to get a whole bunch of like, we had all the belongings that my wife and I have ever owned in our lives that have been stored in the UK for the last decade finally arrived on these 2 pallets last week. And it included like all of my school reports when I was like 4, you know, and like there's a lot that makes sense.
I was the only one that saved those. I have those as well. So good for you.
No, I got them. But like, you know, I was like, I remember being told at some point when I was younger that like, sort of being told like, you are like this. The analogy is that, you know, when people open a fridge door and they look for that can of enter soda name here, Coke, if you want to like do some business with us, then I'll call it Coke, right? Like people's eyes naturally go to the back of the fridge. That's human instinct. But for some people, like, and they'll miss the Coke counters at the front. Some people look at the front and then go back. Like however your brain is wired is how you see things. And, you know, and it's very stressful, but like, I'm lucky enough and pained enough to like spot things that like everybody just looks past. And this whole thing was like, this is an opportunity. There are billions upon billions of minutes of what you just showed, Kirby, like sitting on people's screens. And there's a very easy a seemingly easy but quite difficult to execute answer. It's just a case of can you spot the problem in the first place? And like that's a big part of what we do.
Yeah. So Fred, you answered again, Kirby. I'm going to hand it over to you in a second, but I just wanted to say two things. I was going to say, what was your superpower? And I think you just described what your superpower is, right? And then, unless you have something different, maybe you have another one that you wanted to call out. But I was curious what that is. And then your background. What is it? I mean, what got you here? Do you have a technical background? What's your background? I'm just curious.
Well, God. So the superpower and the background actually, I think, kind of like merge. So hopefully this will be quite easy. Like my superpower is if I was to be as like egotistical as to say I have a superpower.
I asked you the question, so
okay.
You can answer. Yeah.
If I had to pick something as to what my superpower would be, it would be an absolute blindness to how other people perceive me and to what other people think of me. Like that, I didn't think about it, but that's what my whole life growing up in school was all about. Like, while everyone else was walking around with their, ties down here and their trousers down by their ankles, like there was me with my trousers up on my armpits and my tie up here, and like I didn't notice, right? Like never cared. I've never ever cared about how other people look at me or think about me, and and like I was unfortunate. I got like the background, like, well, this isn't your background question, but like I got packed off to boarding school when I was 8 because it was the best way of my parents getting me out of the house while they went through a fucking horrible divorce. And like I went to a very nasty Victorian boarding school that was 200 miles away, and like I was frequently tied down to a bed and beaten because I was not like them. And I don't know, like it just sort of, I guess what people say like is I'm going to be some sort of psychologist's fucking dreamboat sometime later then. But like you just go off to your happy place, it's done, and then you crack on. And like you honestly don't, you remember it, but you just get on. And like, so that was the superpower. And then the background is that like I'm visual, like, so I'm not technical. I'm incredibly visual. And when I started my first actual company, like the bikes, my e-commerce business, I was on the bus to work. So like anyone here who's from South London, which I doubt that's too many of you, I lived in a bedsit in Streatham, and my office was in a flat in Brixton. It was 2 miles downhill and then 2 miles uphill. And like, it was in the tea trade. This was one of the few jobs I had. And I was with this guy for like 12 months. And, I used to buy and sell rare tea. And like, I took the bus to work every day. And I'm like, this is actually eating into my income. Like that like I was making £900 a month, and 500 of that was going on my rent. So the idea of spending £2 or £3 a day on a bus was crazy. But also I couldn't afford to go to a bike shop, right? Because I couldn't afford a bike on the high street. So I said, I bet you other people have got this problem. And like, this is again where like some of the tangibles, some of the intangibles, but like I bet you I'm not the only one who can't afford a bike. So I used to go home at night after my tea job and like would eat precisely the same thing. I would sit at my little kitchen bar in my little bedsit with my mum's 1970s like portable TV that was like this big screen and like that deep with like, the crazy aerial. And I would just start sketching what I could imagine a business needed to be, like how it happened. And it started with a picture of a factory where the bike is made. And I had a picture of someone at the other end of the sheet or standing outside their home, waiting for the delivery person and their bicycle. And then I just slowly started drawing like what was needed in between. And then 6 months later, I quit that job and started my first company, and like had 2 40-foot containers of these bikes that I had designed come over. Like they were incredible. All green, 3-speed. Like the whole idea was that like it couldn't be simpler, the bike. It was £120 delivered to your door. And I'm like, I remember opening it, and that's the story for another day. I remember opening these 2 containers thinking, I'm fucked. Like all of my life's money's gone into these 2 40-foot containers of bikes. And the only money I had left was 50 quid to get some leaflets made. And I'm like, it's going to take me years to sell these 700 bicycles that are sitting in Essex. And I would, like, for the first week, I stood outside, like, Putney railway station saying, like, don't take the train, take a bike. And in the evenings, I'd stand on Putney Bridge and, like, would literally run into I had a bike with a little plastic thing saying, get this bike for £100, don't sit in traffic, you know? And people would open their windows in the road, and I'd have to, like, play that Frogger game where, like, I would run out onto the bridge and hand them a leaflet. I sold all 700 units in 6 weeks, and
gosh.
and that was exciting, and like that required a pretty steep learning curve, but like it was the drawing, you know, like it was so visual but not technical. Stephen, you know, some of you may know him. He's one of my junior interns at Origin. Like, he's the technical guy. He's the smart guy. And he has to handle a lot of this bullshit. But, like, you know, and I think that's where sort of complementary assets come in. I really hope Stephen's not listening anymore, but like I described him. I described him as like, I described us or him as like, I meant to say that we are like the definitive pinky in the brain. And instead I made a very big, loud LinkedIn announcement saying that Stephen is the definitive SpongeBob SquarePants of connected TV. And like, I didn't know what I'd done wrong. I get this message from Stephen like, dude, did I do something wrong? Like, did I offend you? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he goes, well, it was pretty rude. I'm like, what are you doing?
Oh man.
Yeah.
It's great that you guys have that friendship too. Obviously, it makes the process a lot more fun. You know,
it makes it fun when the times are good. It makes it bearable versus unbearable when the times are bad. You know, like, I think that we're lucky, actually. Like, you think about it, you know, I think what makes it work, by the way, like, actually, to address that seriously, Tom, what makes it work is that we were like work colleagues first, and then I was his minion subordinate bitch first, and then we became friends, and that allowed us to kind of have both, like, a professional respect and understanding and grounding that our friendship was based in business. And I think that that's one of the reasons why Origin is able to be what it is, and we're able to communicate with one another the way that we do. I think that's,
and then the fact that you were able to get him to become your apprentice and your assistant is amazing. So
yeah. He pays me a lot though to be allowed to do that, and you know, that's important.
No, that's great, man. That's a great story. I appreciate you very elegantly summarizing your background. That was good.
Yeah. Hey, I want to do a time check. I know we have till 3, but we said eight as well. But like, there's so much shit to talk to. So we either need to reschedule part 2 of like some good shit, and you know what we're doing, or I don't know. Up to you guys.
I'm not going anywhere.
This is my favorite part of the day on Friday. Should we just?
Well, I don't want to be the one to bail at 3 o'clock, but I mean, I can go a little beyond 3, maybe 3:30. But you have another segment, don't you, Kirby, that you wanted to get into?
I might have to get a beer. If I could, definitely put 30 minutes, but you know, maybe a beer.
Yeah, let's do that then. Grab a beer. I mean, you live in New York, so your fridge is probably like 6 feet away. So
how dare you? 5.5 feet away. Are you like, so if we go on hold, are we going to lose our entire audience? Do you think? Like,
no.
Does anybody have any questions for Fred?
I tell you what, if you want to tee up the questions, I'm going to turn off my camera while I run because you can't see my secret.
I'll turn off your camera.
Oh, can you do that?
I'll turn off. Yep. We'll I'll make use of this intermission with some music here.
Get some music.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if people like speak with this music in the background. but it's pretty distracting. Which actually, I got some feedbacks from somebody on the episodes I've been publishing on Spotify and YouTube, which I need to YouTube's fine. Spotify, I need to completely like redo every single one from scratch because it's like, yo, I can't understand these conversations. They're great, but I'm getting super like lost with the music in the background. So I'm oh shit. Yeah, so music I need to go.
Background. Oh,
yeah, because I put music in the background on the audio versions.
Oh, okay.
And that is decent feedback. Like I haven't tested it. Maybe it's an outlier, but it's valid enough. I'm going to just remove music.
Yeah, man, it's not easy. It does require some polishing. Although I think you could probably, I think maybe, I don't know if it's me because I'm real close to the microphone. You're not.
Hey, you're welcome, Steven.
Thanks, Steven. Appreciate you showing up, man.
Fred's back. Hold on. We're just sitting here.
Fred's back.
Here we go.
When I came back in, were you talking about your microphone?
Well, are you aroused?
Well, I was just wondering if it was the same as mine that I got this week. It's a
Blue Yeti. Blue Yeti.
Yeah, but you got to get close to it though. You got to get I think you got to bring it closer to your mouth because it sounds like you're yeah.
Like this.
Like this.
Like this.
You got to get in there.
Kirby, testing.
There you go. You got to get in there.
All right, oh wow.
Whispering willows.
Mira has a question, and to follow up. Oh, I'm sorry. Question.
Yes, Mira. Yes.
What did his first two businesses? Or excuse me. Why did his first two businesses fail?
Well,
did they fail?
Did they fail?
Did they fail?
Well, let me open my beer close to the microphone before I answer this.
Please do.
Please do.
ASMR. What beer though? Real quick.
What beer?
I haven't had a beer since January 10th, so I'm really vicariously loving this.
What?
That's not the other half, is it?
No, that is also in the fridge. This is brought to you, sponsored by Torch and Crown, Manhattan's only brewery on the island.
Whoa, where's that? Way up.
No,
like Inwood or something.
No, it's in Soho or the Westville or somewhere, whatever.
What?
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Best brewery in New York City, other half. Actually, it might be best brewery in the United States. Or second.
Definitely not in the United States, dude. I have 27 brewery t-shirts in that cup. Oh, I've gone all blurry now. Hang on. I've learned this trick. There you go. 27 brewery t-shirts in my wardrobe from my 2 years living in the Pacific Northwest. So be careful. There's a brewery called Cloudburst in Seattle that is, as they say, in London, forget about it.
Okay, that was the last phrase I was going to expect you to say. Did they say that in London? Forget about it like that? Forget about it.
I was put off by Mira's question because, well, we can talk about beer and then I can answer her questions, or I can answer her questions quickly and then we can talk about beer.
Why don't you answer a question while drinking a beer?
Okay. They didn't, Mira. So unless you're counting the blocks of coal and candelabra business, which technically I wound down after I finished repaying my mum, but no, don't. I think it's really awesome that you asked, because it's not binary. The answer isn't binary, and I'm going to talk you through why, because that's actually a fucking cool question. So the bike business, it was absolutely flying. We weren't flying bikes, but the bike business was absolutely roaring for the first 2.5, 3 years. And in getting into year 4, I started getting involved with some other people, and that got me involved in the second business. And for a while, I basically set capital cycles on a bit of autopilot and assuming that was fine. And it was still selling bikes and it was still paying for itself, but it didn't continue to grow. And so it therefore in and of itself was beginning to lose its own kind of value and sex appeal if I wanted to get the company sold. So what happened was the slow trailing of the bike business, which was a mistake, And then my decision to move to California and work with my other friends on the search engine led to not even quite winding Cap Cycles down, but actually selling it. But I sold it for enough money to redecorate the flat that we had just bought in London. Like, it was an exit, and it was an exit for money. And it was enough to do something productive. So, like, you know, to some people, is that a success? Maybe. To other people, maybe not. But like, that was how the first one went. And then the search engine was a really kind of interesting story that's almost like not entirely over. And it was that, you know, I got involved with these two great guys, and we built this event specific search engine, and we raised a lot of money, and we built something absolutely stunning. But like, I think the search engine was where I made most of my mistakes in my life. Like, we boiled the ocean, you know, like, we tried to do too many things before we launched the product. We were spending too much money, etc. But like, we had this gigantic vision, and that's so like that, Tom, was like the bit between your teeth thing. But how do you balance that with reality and fact checking first? And you know, we were really sort of working on it, and then someone came along after we did this sort of TechCrunch style stage thing, and like said, "Can we buy you?" And we were like, "Yeah," but we didn't get it all right. And so while that deal was a pretty good deal, they didn't actually have the cash to pay for it, and we ended up going into a pretty lengthy process to like try to resolve that, which took almost 7 years. And you know, so like, again, that was an exit, but like, I think I'd probably describe that as like Apollo 13, you know, like, it was a successful failure. I was lucky. My two business partners really like handled a lot of that fallout. And I was there for depositions, you know, like the arbitration, but like, that was it. But that sucks. I've never learned more in my life than like that 3-year blog, for sure. But, and then who knows about the third mirror? Why did Origin fail, Stephen? He says we should go into flying bikes. So maybe that's what he's doing.
That's a good one. I was going to ask you, I had a note to ask you about can you think of one moment in all of your business experience where you thought, I want to call it like a war story, but like, there's so many of those, but I just mean like a moment where you just felt completely like everything was over, everything was crumbling around you, and then somehow you just you made a couple of quick decisions, and then you got out of it. I was curious if you had one of those stories.
One a day, like,
yeah, exactly, yeah.
What's
one that sticks out in your mind the most?
I've got one, and it makes me like, I'll see if I can tell it without crying, honestly. And I think, by the way, I think that's part of what you need to be when you're working. Like, that love and emotion is what triggers, and that's actually that's the fuel in any company, right? Like, that you're owning. But Heidi came home from work one day back when I was running the bikes in London, and she found me in the corner in the bedroom, curled up in a ball, crying. And she said, "What's the matter?" And I said, I had more returns on my bikes today than I sold. And she goes, "Okay, so what's the problem?" And I said, "Well, today I lost £500, you know, like and it was the gravity of that. I didn't know how to compute or challenge. And like, so, you know, she sort of picks me up and she goes, "Okay, dude, like, that's shit. You know, I'm not going to pretend she said anything perfect. Heidi is a human and she's incredible." She's like, "That's shit. Okay, so what are you going to do?" And I sort of wallowed. And then the next day I'm like, "Okay, so why? Why did I have more returns than I made sales? Like, why were people returning the bikes?" And I discovered that it was because that particular batch of bikes, the brakes had been wired. So left hand did front wheel and right did back when it's meant to be, and vice versa, right? Like, it was something really simple. So I got on my motorcycle and I drove to the warehouse with a knife, a screwdriver, and 400 cigarettes. And I'm like, right, battle. And I pulled at that point like 400, 500 bikes off the racks, one by one, until my fingers bled. I took every single bike out and rewired the brakes correctly, and then taped them back up, put them back on the rack, and then rode home. And like, that was that. That's my war story.
Man,
That's great.
yeah. It's I mean, it's that stuff that makes you able to do the things that you're doing today. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It's just you've just built character, and you've created, again, this, I mean, again, kind of speechless on that one, but it's basically, that's what it takes. Unfortunately.
What doesn't kill you, like, makes you stronger. And I really hate corny phrases, right? But like, you got to,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got two choices of everything that you do, right? In your personal life, you can either be a good human being or you can be a bad human being. Like, professionally, you can either like buckle or you can fight. And, and the only like speaks to something we talk about. The one thing you've really got to think about, though, if you're going to fight, is, should I be, like, knowing when to fold. I think this is one of the biggest problems that so many people struggle with when they want to work for themselves, right? It's not about ego, and it's not even about dignity. It's about like the blindness that I talked about earlier. It's like, where does your blindness actually start like damaging you versus being the thing that's needed
100%.
to drive you? And
100%, Fred. And actually, I was just having this conversation a week ago that, we were talking about success. You were talking about entrepreneurial success and what defines that. I think it's different for everybody, right? I don't think that there is a simple definition to that. But what but when you come out, when you get those blinders on, I would actually argue that sometimes success means just knowing when to stop. Sometimes it just means knowing when to stop, and knowing, like, especially if it starts to impact the people that you care about around you. And that's where, you either got to have somebody pull you out, or the business just has to collapse, or something has to happen. But I think, sometimes if someone has the humility to say, you know what, now's not the right time, I got to come back at this another time, I think that says a lot about someone.
Well, it's hard. Like, that will only come from learning about yourself, and that only comes from experience. Like,
Yeah.
do you know what, like, because when it came to Origin, I knew this was going to be the biggest play of my career. I knew it. And I believe Origin's going to be the biggest play of my whole career period ever. And so I'm lucky to have Stephen, but also, Stephen's not been through a lot of this, right? And so he trusted me with a lot of my instincts. And one of the things that I did on day one was I said, every day we get up, we got to imagine that we're looking down a runway, right? And there's someone at the other end, and he's holding a big fucking gun. And you're walking one step closer to that person every single day, that you're not like beginning to create that growth that you're looking for, that business, the vision that you've got. Every day when you're tomorrow, you're not. Understand that you're getting one step closer to that guy who wants to shoot you in the face. And so what we did is we set like monthly and quarterly goals that became checklists of, are we denying to ourselves that we're getting closer, or do we have tangible proof that we're getting closer? And those goals were really simple goals, right? Like, they were like, make more money than we spend, like establish something, prove something, get X. And the deal was, I've still got the document actually. Like, it was, if we check all 5, we're good. If we check 4, we go, okay, like, sort of amber alert. If we check 3, we got to stop and say, what, like, do we need to do a bit of a reality check here?
Yeah.
And that became a really, like, I don't know where, like, really we had the idea to do it exactly. Like, I'm sure Stephen will say it was all me, and I'll say it was all me, and then someone might say it's all Stephen. But like,
well, your instincts to keep it simple. I mean, I think that's absolutely critical. Simplicity is so critical.
It like simplicity is magic. You know, that's the thing. It's the easier something is, the less there is to fuck up. And you know, and like our logic,
and it's
like
hard. It's hard because you're thinking about so many things, and you want to try to touch everything, and everything is you know, you feel like everything needs your attention, but you just got to keep it focused. It's really hard to do, man. It's hard to do. Stay focused and just keep things really simple. But that sounds like a good formula that you got.
Yeah,
man.
I think so.
I want to make a non-smooth transition here, and Fred, I sent you a note, and I don't know, while we were conversing, the blurb was, by the way, do you want to have a Friday Fodder about ADHD sometime? And you said yeah. And the reason I asked you that is because I think that this is sometime like late 2019. We're in New York. It was at that theater on 26th Street. I don't know who was all there. I know it was us and maybe some 5 other people. Went over to a bar kind of after it was over. And you had kind of been talking about ADHD and how you've been dealing with that, but kind of high level though. And then around the time, that was around the time where I was struggling with some stuff with ADHD. And I wanted to talk to you more about that. But this is essentially like this time. Like I haven't had a conversation with you about this, and I definitely wanted to share and swap stories. So the first question is, I mean, can you confirm, number one, you have ADHD before I just say, hey, Fred's got ADHD?
Yes, and my doctor, or my sort of what I describe as my doctor who wears the bow tie, said that it's Adhd, not ADHD for me. But I hit on a pretty far end of the spectrum, partly because it's so late onset. So yeah, I do. It's clinical, and I'm incredibly proud of it, and believe that not enough people, or too many people, think that they can't talk about it. I think that sadly there's like a stigma around it for a number of reasons. But yeah, very much so.
And this is why I want to have the chat, and just for the reasons you said, Fred. And also, I know if somebody's like gonna just be willing to have this chat, it's also going to be you as well. Sorry, Tom.
No, I'm actually fascinated by this because I've actually thought at times, I mean, I feel like at times we all have, and for the people that are actually diagnosed with ADHD or ADD, they would probably think that that's a ridiculous sentiment. But I believe that, I mean, there's many times where I'm trying to focus, I get distracted, I can't remember what I was just about. I'm literally sometimes mid-sentence, and I can't remember what I was about to just say, right? Sometimes I think it's maybe, So what is it for you guys? When did you realize, like, this is not normal? I need to go to a doctor and get this checked out.
I mean, do you want me to go first, Kirby, or do you want to get
whatever you want? I could go first.
And by the way, if it's out of bounds, that's fine.
No,
I don't think with us anything's off bounds.
It's not. It's really important that if people are prepared to say why, then someone else who may feel that way may hear it and not do something stupid.
And Fred, you're in a really great position because you're very successful. You've got this great business, and so you're dealing with it. Kirby, you're dealing with it. You can be successful and have this, and it's good to hear about how you guys are
critical, right? Like, I mean, that's the important bit, because there are 7 billion people in this world, right? And let's say, half of them are all like fighting for the same money that you are in one way or another. And like, you don't like, it's not that you don't want to be like everybody else, but like there's a huge virtue and gift to being different or thinking differently, that like, again, it speaks to individuality, right? Like it's easier to be the same and be inside the comfort zone and the box of like neutrality and normality. And like, I think this way and my house looks like that person's house. And I know that my income's the same as theirs because I secretly saw their bank statements and I drive the same car. Like it's the comfort blanket of like society makes a ton of sense. But like when it comes to like actually being out there in business, it's easier, I think, if you're different. And being wired the way that that we are makes it easier to be different because we are different. You just need to know that it's there. You need to understand why. And like
and leverage it possibly, right?
Well, yeah, like so I didn't know, right? I was diagnosed at the end of 2018 and it was because I was thinking about killing myself. And I didn't know why. Okay. I couldn't hear my wife talking in front of me. I couldn't stop attacking my own brain for everything that it was trying to pull itself, all the different directions it was trying to pull itself apart in. I couldn't reconcile anything at all. And I'm like, it just drove me so far down that I didn't know what to do. And so I went to see a professional and I said, look, I'm not someone who gets the grumpies, but I think I've got a problem. And so we sit down and we talk. And originally he's trying to diagnose me for like what kind of depression I have and whether he should wheel me off. And about 15 minutes in, he goes, I'm just going to change gears for a sec. And then 2 hours and about 250 questions later, he goes, well, I got good news and I got bad news. He goes, the good news is that you don't have the grumpies. Like you're actually a pretty solid, like put together guy. I think you've got control over that. The bad news is the reason why you're suicidal, the reason why you feel the way you do is because you have no dopamine running into your frontal lobe. And like what that's causing is this conflict that you can't reconcile because you can't even hear yourself, let alone other people in the room in front of you. And you hate yourself for it. You have what we call ADD. That was it.
Fred, that is mind-blowing. I would have never expected those symptoms to be connected to ADD. That is incredible.
It's actually more common than you think. But sorry, Kirby.
No. I mean, it's terrible that you had to go through that. But I also commend you for realizing that and going to seek attention to get that resolved and figure out what's going on. There's so many people, and I think it's an older generational thing that like, and I think it's even male dominated. This whole like resistance to like, I don't need help. I'm not going to see anybody. I'm fine. I can fix myself. And that can lead to so much wrong shit. And like, what if you had not gotten help? And I mean, that's it's awesome. You sought that out. That's awesome. You are aware that something's not right and you got it fixed. And
Exactly.
there's times where I always try to be aware and upfront and open about the ways I'm feeling, because I don't want to like take it on and try to fix it myself. Like that's dangerous. I've seen people close to me and not go so well. So I'm going to be open to shit. If I'm feeling weird, you're going to know about it because I need to make sure like if we can fix this, we're going to fix this.
And also like I want you to
Oh, sorry, Fred, go ahead.
No, that's it. Like
yeah. Kirby, how long have you been aware of your
My story is tougher to tell because it goes back a long time, and I can tell you the version like now in retrospect. And I don't know what's the easier one to tell. Also, I have ADHD is mine's. I got the H in there. But like I was diagnosed when I was 11 or 12, and I was a teenager. I basically thought, Mom, why are you dragging me to see the psychiatrist? We all have fucking ADHD. We're teenagers. Like I don't have this. But I took the medicine. I think it was Ritalin or whatever, and until I stopped. And I don't know why I stopped at the time. And so here's kind of my story, quick version, and I can answer questions, all that. So this was around, I think, 2015 now. And so we're probably like now 20 years after I've taken 20 years since I've really thought about ADHD. It's just the way I am. 20 years since I've thought about consuming anything to correct that. And if you want to know who has ADHD or not, like go to a club and ask who wants Adderall. Like my friends always want my Adderall. I'm like, bro, I definitely don't want an Adderall right now. It doesn't work for me the same. That's one test. Like who wants Adderall at the bar? If you do, you don't got it, man. That's a good test. So this was 2015, and we had some friends in town. This is when we're in New York. Not that matters. But some, like, after they left, this is Monday, and I just go out into the living room and I see some pills like on our entertainment stand, and my wife was working at home, and I asked, what are these pills? And my wife goes, oh yeah, that was this person's name, like Adderall. They just left it here. And I said, interesting. I used to never took Adderall, but I used to take Ritalin, and they always said I had ADHD. So this is like Monday morning. I popped that shit, motherfucker. 2 hours later, holy shit! Like if I have to describe it, like I generally fire on an 8 or 9 out of 10 cylinder, maybe 6. Who knows? But whatever that gap is, Adderall fixes. Like I'm operating on this level. I am like just optimal performance, like amazing. So I went and saw somebody, and I got some Adderall because my God, like this is like the missing link. And how the hell did I just pause this for 20 years? Not even think about it for 20 years. And then here's where I know why in retrospect comes in. As soon as I started taking it, holy hell, my armpits are sweating like crazy. And also as a teenager when I was taking it. And that's the number one reason I stopped back in the days. Like I just don't want to wear 14 t-shirts because I'm sweating through 13 of them. And that's why I stopped.
Yeah. Well, interesting
Originally.
about that, like different. So this is a rabbit hole point because you said a lot of other things that are actually I have thoughts on, but like one of the scariest things about choosing to medicate is that there are different generic brands, different pharmaceutical brands that make the drug, and your local pharmacy just goes every month with whatever the cheapest is. Like they don't realize that actually like Sandoz versus Aurobindo versus Elite, like they all technically are an amphetamine salt, but they bulk them differently, and they actually have a very different effect on the body and on the mind. And so like, you know, it's possible like, yeah, sure, amphetamine makes you run hot. That's true. But like, there's also every possibility that a different like pharmaceutical brand might not. And so that's something that's really terrifying. I actually had to switch away from like CVS when we moved from Seattle to New York, because the CVS in New York had a brand that was so different to what I'd become used to, but also could never like reliably get me in the brand that I had become used to. So I went and found a local like pharmacy on 79th, and like that's where I go because I know that every month I get the same thing. Because there's another thing, Tom, it's like it's not like it's an OCD thing, but like if you were to, you know, like, I mean, you can see most of Kirby's desk, right? And you can see my office around me. A big part of how people cope, there are lots of coping mechanisms. A big part of how people cope with, you know, this sort of dopamine thing and like ADD is, as well as medicating, is to keep your life as simple as you can around you, because that helps you maintain this like sense and feeling of like control when your brain wants to go on a spin.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, and I actually quite like that. The other thing, of course, I do is I got a shout out here, my Millennium Falcon. You know,
yes, I thought I saw that. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I got my Falcon there, like that I could stop, and like I learned that my macro focus or micro focusing was good. And do you know what actually like really brought that out? Before I knew, right? And by the way, I'm now allowing myself to go on these tangents. It's so tough, but like before I knew that I loved photography, right? And like I could never tell why, but I found it very, 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 very therapeutic to get behind the lens of a camera. And it was because I had found a place where I could kind of like micro focus. And for the one person who's left, I'm guessing it's maybe one, maybe half. You, Tom, like go to fredspictures.com. I'm much more interested in promoting that than I am Origin. And you'll see that like I take photos, right?
Wow.
And like that. And then when I'm done taking the photos, I go into Lightroom and I sit there and I'll stare at one of these photos. And it's not because I've taken my medication. It's because I found a place to allow myself to go like this, right?
Yeah.
But a reaction, Kirby, you said something which I think is really interesting. Like I take a very small amount of this drug, and you know, I have a very odd schedule. And for anyone out there who watches this who has ADD, I take 10 milligrams when I wake up in the morning at about 5, and then I take 10 milligrams after breakfast at about 8:30. That's a very weird interval, just to be clear. Like that's not normal, but that's what I do. I take 20 milligrams a day, instant release, not extended. That fucked with me really badly. And
Extended.
yeah, and it wasn't for me the going from like an 8 out of 10 to all cylinders. It was more being able to see the world in color. It was about seeing the world the way that other people, I guessed, had always been seeing it. And that clarity is what's driven me to, I believe, to like perform. And it's certainly what dealt with the problem. Like the depression was driven by this frustration with myself that I couldn't put my finger on. And so for me, and I'll tell you one thing, like I was on a flight like a few weeks into starting taking these pills, and like I was really sheepish and I was like in like row 1C of this flight, you know, somewhere, and like reach up and I get my bag, and the guy sitting next to me is like, "You have ADD, don't you?" I said, "How the fuck did you figure that out?" And he goes, "Well, because, you know, only someone like you would look at their watch and go, 'Oh, it's 9 o'clock, like it's time,' you know." I'm like, "Okay, wow." And he goes, "Well, I know that because I've been, you know, taking pills since I was 13. And I go, "So what advice do you have?" And fucking hell, this stuck with me. I said, "I feel bad. I'm scared, right? Like, I don't like this. I don't want to have to do this, but I didn't have a choice." And he goes, "Dude, it's people take vitamins every day, right? And unfortunately, your vitamin is a synthetic amphetamine. That's the end of the discussion. Like, it's a vitamin." He said, "Don't be scared of it. Don't think it's weird. Just you take your vitamin in the morning and you stay healthy." And I'm like, holy shit.
Wow.
He wasn't wrong.
You take them 7 days a week?
I do. I do. I asked my doctor if it would be smart, like to not to take breaks and whatever, and they said no, because hopefully what you'll find is you find yourself on a level. And I do. Like, I don't get what other people feel like, the highs or the you know, cliffs and the drop-offs, when you don't need it, right? When you're turbocharging your body with with dopamine. I don't have that. I don't get a lift in the morning. I don't have a crash at night. I have a steady cadence, and as a result, though, I can't take these breaks. And, you know, so I have a long-term decision to make at some point, because I don't want to die taking these pills, and I don't want the pills to kill me. But that's something that features every day. And it's probably one of the reasons why I drink like 2 liters of green tea every morning, because I'm terrified about what I'm putting in. So I've got to try and put other good things in too. But I don't take days off now. I forget sometimes on the weekend.
So by the way, I don't take anything for this anymore.
Good for you.
We could talk about that, but when I was taking it, I would take the weekends off, which were absolutely terrible. I probably shouldn't have done that. And this is another thing. It took me so long to realize this was happening. So what would happen? You learn all this stuff after the fact. Is I would take my Adderall Monday through Friday, fire on all cylinders, crush it. Saturday, Sunday, I take it off because I'm not really doing a whole lot of work, and I should probably let it cycle out of my body. And what I was finding, I was crashing. I felt like complete shit. And what did I do? We're in New York City. This is pre-kids. We go out and just drink. So basically, Monday through Friday, fire on all cylinders on Adderall. I'm shit faced from like Friday evening to Sunday. And then I get back going on the Adderall thing, firing all cylinders. Like it just catches up with you. Like this isn't sustainable. This is not like I was just using, I mean, alcohol is fine, but I was just using way more alcohol just to cope with how shitty I felt. And that was from the come down off Adderall. Like it was terrible.
That's a really honest thing to say. That's Kirby, that deserves some recognition because that's an important statement, right? Like a lot of us use alcohol to anesthetize one thing or another. But the fact that you actually figured out that why you were doing this, but you obviously felt like some kind of double-edged sword, right? Like this is the thing that is like the most scary is that like, shit, what am I going to do? Am I going to carry on taking speed 7 days a week? Or am I going to try and take this break because I'm a healthy guy? I mean, like you are the most built person I know. Like no one is more beautiful and more put together than you. And like, so you care, right? You care about your body, you care about your health, you care about your mental well-being. How do you reconcile that against having to take a drug every single day?
Yeah.
It's tricky, man.
Yeah. And those, I didn't realize I was using alcohol to help solve this issue at the time. And so, yeah, I'm not as of September 2019, I'm Adderall free. And the main reason is I kind of had a similar thought to you. Like it's fine if I'm going to consume this vitamin every day. Like there's an issue. This thing helps like plug in that gap. But also part of me doesn't want to have to take it all the time. And is there other ways that I could cope with this? Is a thought I always had. But then come August, I think it was like even like July, it was like the summer of 2019. Like there was an Adderall shortage. Like no pharmacy had Adderall, at least in Florida. Like it was completely dry. And I went like, I don't know, like 2 months, no Adderall, like shit. And finally, I think a script came in. And at this time, I was like, man, I'm already like this far. I'm already this many months in, like the perfect time. But a script came in. And also I got a phone call from CNBC. They're like, hey, why don't you come over to New Jersey and we'll film some shit about the streaming wars. I was like, shit, this is like the worst time to like commit to like, all right, no Adderall. And so what do you think I did? Do you think I like did just finish that bottle, or do you think I like stuck it out? I didn't take it. Like I left the script. It's probably still there in Juno Beach at CVS. And I'm sure they threw it away by this point. It's like, I'm not going to do it. So like, I was scared of shit. Like, how's this guy that's just like with ADHD, that's been taking shit for 4 years, that decided he's not going to go in front of a camera in Inglewood at CNBC, talk about the streaming wars. Like, oh my God. But that was like, that's basically like, if you ask me when I stopped, like I know exactly, September 2019, CNBC.
So I wonder how
been
much
free since.
So I wonder how much though of like the Kirby that we've all seen and we all know and love that has been operating since then is actually being fed by like a natural force of dopamine because of your determination, right? Like, and that's the whole point. People forget about ADD being a chemical thing. It's not cognitive, it's chemical. And like it comes across as being cognitive. And you can't learn yourself out of it. You can learn how to cope with it. Like my pictures, right? But you can't like suddenly make dopamine flow into your frontal lobe, but you can. Like you can get that hype. I remember there are two things that when I look back, like when I finished that whole 2 hours with the guy, right? When like I discovered where I was, and I was like fucking crying my eyes out. And he goes, "Why are you so sad?" And I said, "Because, you know, like you've just literally read out a chronology of my life, right? Like everything that didn't make sense now makes sense because of the questions you asked." And like there are two things that I noticed was like one, music. I've discovered like when I was younger, like really early 30s, like as it was really getting bad and I wasn't noticing, if I'd be like sitting on an aeroplane and like playing the music, I would actually create a dopamine kick and would crush it, right? And like would work and like would really get along. And the second was I could never understand what the big deal was with cocaine, because it didn't do anything for me. And like, that's one of the things. Coffee sends you to sleep when you don't have it, and Coke is a waste of money. There you go. Like, if you really, like you were saying, like you want to walk into a bar and say, who wants my Adderall? And like, whoever doesn't say yes is someone who has ADD. Like, the other two ways to test them is give them a double espresso. I know.
Watch them take a nap.
And see if they take a nap, and offer someone like a line of Coke for $100. And if they say no thanks, it's because it's a waste. Well, it is a waste of money. Don't do drugs, children. But like, those are two remarkable side effects, like or effects or side impacts, or whatever. But the going to sleep thing, when I was working for Stephen at Newsy, after lunch, I'd often have a coffee, and he would find me under my desk like a vampire. I would just be arms across chest like this, and I did these like 12-minute power naps, like, and felt great. But yeah, coffee sends me to sleep.
Fred,
yeah,
you
guys,
said something. What's that, Tom?
I was just going to say, guys, I just wanted to say that this is amazing. I mean, this is so amazing, this conversation, and it does need to be acknowledged that you guys are so forthcoming with this, and I think this is going to help a lot of people. I think there's going to be people that are going to watch this somewhere and go, whoa, that's me, or wow, maybe I need to look at this. Maybe I need to go and get this checked out or something. That's it's incredible. So thanks, guys, for being so open about it.
Fred, you said something that made me think of something I haven't thought of in years. And you're like, I wonder, the Kirby we know is driven by, I don't know if you said determination or like creatine and protein or what you said. And I met you. I was probably on Adderall when we'd have our like powwows at the schmoozy office.
Maybe like that was 20,
I think that was
17ish,
14. Yeah. But you said how much of Kirby that we know, and when you said that, like something really powerful, I just remember, and this is important to call out, is this is actually the night of that CNBC thing I did. I was meeting some friends at a bar, and I one I hadn't seen in a while, and he's like, Kirby, how's it going, man? And here I am, forthcoming Kirby is like, man, I've been like taking Adderall, I'm off of it, I feel so much better, and he's like, dude, say no more. Like as soon as you walked in, and I'm like 2 minutes in conversation with this guy, probably 7 minutes total in. I've been in this establishment. He's like, Kirby, stop. As soon as you walked in, like I could see you're different. When I talk to you, you don't look through me. You're looking at me. I'm like, I don't even know I still don't know what that means. But it's like, holy shit, man. Like this is not good. Like I'm definitely staying off of this stuff, man.
Wow.
Like if you could call me out when I walk through a door, like something's different about you. And then when I say something like, I could totally tell, like you're not like just looking through me, like thinking about whatever. Like
that's amazing. That's actually very telling. Like that means that, you know, whatever you've done, whatever you have done is really special, because most people like me, I would look through people until I was able to take my medication, and like, you know, because it's everything that's around you. It's not the thing you're meant to be focusing on. Like, and a focus is like level 1 out of 100 levels of what this thing really is about, right? Yeah. Like, you know, and like Tom, to what you said, I know you got to go, dude. Like, I would just.
No, it's good. It's good.
But like,
I want to.
I just wanted to say that, like, you said something that, you know, we then all walked past. And I just want you to, like, I just want to point out that what you said was really actually, I wanted to make sure we talked about before we all left, was that there's a little bit of ADD in all of us, right? Like, you are not wrong. There's a massive piece of like creativity and desire and distraction. Like, we all have that. And a lot of people call them, like, you know, I joked with you earlier, right? The senior moment. Like, that's all good and okay. It's not necessarily ADD, but like, it's also not necessarily not a bit of like just the brain being a bit naughty for a minute, you know? And like, and that's okay. Like, there are levels to these things. There are steps, there are stages, there are, like there are ends to every single spectrum, right? And like, but I would say that we all have a little bit of ADD in us. And if we didn't, I wouldn't want to live on this world.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
I mean, Tom, you've done big things. You guys have done big things, and that requires having an idea. Like that doesn't stem from reading all the same manuscripts as other people, right? Like it all comes from something.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah,
man. Well, I mean, so Kirby, unless you had anything else, Fred, I just wanted to give you, I wanted to make sure that before we got off that you had an opportunity to plug whatever you wanted to talk about. Kirby, I don't want to take, I want you to send this out, but I just want to make sure Fred had a moment to do that.
Torch and Crown.
FredsPictures.com.
FredsPictures.com. There you go.
I will definitely check that out, man.
We're doing I'm going on I haven't signed off with my boss yet, but I'm taking a week off to go up to the Arctic Circle in August with my best friend to go on a photo workshop. And I'm excited because then I'll actually learn how to take proper photos rather than the shit that you'll see at FredsPictures.com. But I think, there's some fun stuff there. The West Coast is beautiful, and so is Tibet, and so are other places. But thanks. Look, I think, Guy, I mean, we've only overrun by almost an hour. Like, Kirby, I'll leave you to be the one that tell us to go. But Tom, I know you've got to run.
No, I don't have any wrap up or inspiration quotes. Like for me, it's Florida. For us, it's Florida. I'll chalk it to a summer Friday, man. So I don't got much to do. So I do appreciate you coming on. I love the conversation. I love the shit you're doing at Origin. I've always loved hanging out and talking to you guys. That's why I was probably in your office more times than you want me to at Schmoozy. EW Schnips with the Mish and Strong. Love you, dude. Doing great stuff. Love the chat. Thanks for going over because as much as I like to go over the place, I try to dial in ADD and stick to the conversation we had, which almost took the whole hour. So appreciate the bonus footage.
I've loved it. There's something very therapeutic about, I don't know, taking the format that we work through, right, all day, every day, and like having a discussion where you can actually like really be who you are in a way. Like, I mean, I'm fairly well known for being who I am when I talk to my clients, but like, you offered me to, like, I don't want to, like, I don't want to talk about work,
You nailed it, man. Like that's so great. Like the people that we look up to and work with, our colleagues and people that we interact with on a business level, I think it's so interesting, to break it down and just talk shop, talk business or entrepreneurship specifically, or
100%,
how you get started and all that. Oh, that's great stuff.
If we've helped just a single person either realize that like they're normal or that they're special or that like they might have a thing, I mean, that was a fucking good use of 2 hours. Like, that's what else are we here for? So thanks, Kirby. Thank you for inviting me. I really do appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for joining. Have a good weekend. And confirm one thing. Is Jacob's Pickles still there?
That rings a bell.
I think like 84th in Amsterdam. All right. I'll follow up.
Yeah,
afterwards.
I think so. I'm 4 blocks down. I'll go out and check.
Because I think it caught on fire at some point. So I don't know if it came back or whatever. But anyway. I mean, I always try to wedge in food, and I realize I haven't done that. So anyway, just needed to say Jacob's Pickles. Check it off my list.
Bagels and Pickles, Upper West Side. There you go.
I don't know. Thank you, man. Have a good weekend. Thanks,
All
Fred.
right.
Thanks, Tom.
Kirby, thank you guys.
Until next week. Founder Friday. All right. See you guys.
I'll be there.
See you.